Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. I mentioned this group name because I found so many similarities with this group and the subject of today's video. Both groups were carried by one lead singer. That one lead singer failed to have a successful solo career, and they tragically met their end way too soon. The group I'm comparing the Teenagers to is High Five. High Five were an R&B group from the early 90s, led by Tony Thompson. He carried the group to success, but behind the scenes, he struggled with personal demons. But he wasn't the only member that dealt with personal demons. One member got caught up in a shooting before the group could take off. Another member got involved in a serious accident that would leave him paralyzed. And another member would commit a sick crime that would lead to a loss of life. So without further ado, this is the tragedy of High Five. May Tony Thompson rest in peace. Before we begin, if you want to see music bios or more good videos like this, hit the subscribe button. And without further ado, on to our feature presentation. The nucleus of High Five was Tony Thompson. Anthony Ulysses Thompson Jr. was born on September 2nd, 1975, and I didn't know this at the time, but me and him share a birthday. Born in Waco, Texas, he was raised in Oklahoma City. At an early age, he became a singing protege. Another singer named Willie Walton wanted to help Tony into becoming a star. Walton helped Tony into getting an audition for music manager Vinnie Bell and Robert Ford from New York. They wanted the young singer to build a teen group around him, similar to the Jackson 5 and New Edition. They loved what they heard and started to work with him. They asked Tony if he knew any other friends that could sing. Tony first recruited his friend from OKC named Toriano Easley. Legend has it he could really sing. Next was Russell Neal, who wasn't as strong of a lead singer, but a good background dancer and singer. The rest of the group comprised of Marcus Sanders and Roderick Pooh Clark. The group would be named the Playmates, however that name was short-lived because Hugh Hefner threatened a lawsuit as he owned the rights to the Playmates name, so the boys settled with High Five. The group was signed with Vinnie Bell's management, who had them signed to Jive Records. To work on their debut album, the boys relocated to New York and worked with the pioneer of New Jack Swing named Teddy Riley. Their self-titled debut album was released on September 1990. Their debut single was Just Can't Handle It, and it peaked at number 3 on the R&B charts despite not making the Hot 100. What am I gonna do? Instead of filming the video in New York, it was filmed in Waco, Texas, the boys' hometown. The boys felt successful, but one member didn't get to experience the success. Back in Oklahoma City, Toriano Easley went back home to visit some friends and got into a fight with someone he knew there. While he was fighting, his gun went off and shot the man in the stomach, killing him. At 17, just when Just Can't Handle It was about to take off, Toriano Easley was charged with first-degree murder. He accepted a guilty plea to the lesser manslaughter charge and was sentenced to 10 years, of which he only served 6.5. Now High Five had a dilemma of replacing Toriano Easley or it'll be the end of the group. They ended up finding a replacement for Toriano named Teston Irby from the Bronx. His arrival came just in time for the follow-up single, another Teddy Riley tune named I Like the Way, The Kissing Game. The song became a smash hit, peaking at number 1 on the R&B charts. It crossed over to pop, going number 1 on the Hot 100. With the success of I Like the Way, Tony Thompson, at age 15, welcomed a son named Tevin in 1991. They followed up with a ballad called I Can't Wait Another Minute. In the video, Teston lipped Toriano's vocals. The whole time, everyone thought Teston was really singing that part. Well, he does now, but still. I Can't Wait Another Minute peaked in the top 10 on both the R&B and pop charts. The boys hit the road as their debut album went gold. In 1992, the boys started to work on their follow-up album, but there were some changes made. For one, they fired their manager Vinnie Bell and replaced him with their road manager Jonathan Kinlock. Then they take aim at Jive as they thought Jive wasn't paying them properly. The group was told hotel rooms, spending hours on the phone talking to the girls, and other recoupable expenses. They had to pay that money back, explaining why they could sell a good number of records and have less money than someone working at McDonald's. Russell Neal came up with the idea to hold out until a better deal is reached. What they don't know is, and by doing this, they'll hurt their own money. So they went to work and Neal did his holdout alone. Their follow-up album, Keep It Going On, was released on August 1992. Their lead-off single was She Was Playing Hard to Get. In the video, Neal was a no-show. The song, however, did become a top 5 hit on both charts. While in Florida, High Five was headed to a radio station to do an interview. Guess someone rear-ended the vehicle and flipped it over. Everyone got out the vehicle uninjured except for one person. When it was time for Pooh to get out the vehicle, he said he couldn't feel his legs. Pooh was paralyzed from the neck down and never walk again. In 2022, Roderick Pooh Clark would die from a pneumonia-related illness at the age of 49. At the hospital, Russ visited Pooh, and Pooh requested Russ to rejoin High Five. He accepted and rejoined the group. Their follow-up single was Quality Time, written by The Creep, and that peaked at number 3 on the R&B charts and number 38 on the Hot 100. And Keep It Going On also went gold. While on the road, they started to work on their third album. But while doing so, and with their contracts with Jive expiring, the boys started to take offers from other labels. Jive wanted the boys to stay, but the boys felt like they could get a better deal elsewhere. Once their third album was completed, High Five signed a deal with Giant Records and gave each member $60,000. But then Russell Neal was told because of his holdout, he will only get $30,000 and the other half will be split amongst the other members. Neal felt that was unfair and he left the group for good this time. He would be replaced with Shannon Gill and Terrence Murphy. Even though they hardly recorded the album, the two newcomers were placed on the cover. Faithful was released on October 1993. The album spawned a successful single called Never Should Have Let You Go. Thanks to the song's connections with the Sister Act 2, the song peaked at number 30 on the Hot 100. The album also had the song Unconditional Love, and that song was featured on the Menace to Society soundtrack. But because the boys were making deals behind Jive's back, Jive failed to promote the album. Now under contract with Giant, the boys were met with another surprise. Giant promised the group that they'll release a Tony Thompson solo album and a year later a High Five album. But Giant was solely focused on Tony. Learning of this, the rest of High Five decided to go back to Waco and relax, basically ending High Five. Tony Thompson released his first and only solo album called Sensational in 1995. The album featured some big names working on it like Mary J. Blige, Sean Puff Daddy Combs, Faith Evans, I'll Be Sure, Joe, Missy Elliott, among others. It had one single, I Wanna Love Like That, and that was written by Babyface. It peaked at number 59 on the Hot 100 and number 10 on the R&B charts. But the album failed to meet expectations despite a strong performance from Tony. But more issues surfaced with Tony, a problem he had since with High Five. Tony's drug problem was getting worse. With him being in High Five, the group was able to hide Tony's drug problem, but now that he was on his own, he wasn't able to conceal it as well. After his debut album flopped, he and High Five were dropped from Giant Records. After this, he had a deal lined up to sign with Bad Boy, but his drug problem hindered that from happening. Desperate for money, Tony wanted High Five to reunite and record a new album, but the other members weren't ready to do that for some reason. In 2005, High Five re-emerged with a new album called The Return, featuring Tony, Terrence Murphy, and 3 other members under his In-Depth Entertainment. When the other members found out about that, they filed a cease and desist letter over the High Five name. Because of this, the album sales were halted. In 2007, Tony and the real members of High Five had all reconciled and readied themselves for a real reunion. Then, on June 1st, 2007, in Waco, Tony Thompson's body was found near an air conditioning unit. The autopsy report revealed he had a toxic amount of freon in his system. He was 31 years old. In 2009, the bad news of the group continued to occur. While outside of a nightclub in Connecticut, Treston Irby was shot 5 times. According to Irby, he was an innocent bystander and the shooting was random. Luckily, he survived the ordeal. In 2022, he released his first book called Hiatus. In his book, he talks about how being shot 5 times helped him overcome depression. I need to prepare you for the next part of this video because it's about to get very dark. Catherine Martinez was a model and fitness instructor. She will meet former member Russell Neal. The two will fall in love, get married, and have 2 boys. Russell will front and flex like he had a lot of money since he was in High Five, but in reality, Catherine was the breadwinner and Russ never had that much money from High Five. The relationship was unsurprisingly rocky. He would put hands on her, verbally abuse her, and he would charge her $40 to babysit their own kids. In 2014, she had all she took and planned on leaving him to focus on her and her 2 kids. On June 28, 2014, Russell Neal went to the police saying that he and his wife got into a fight and she needs medical attention. But when they went to the apartment they were staying, the police found Catherine Martinez dead from multiple stab wounds and blunt force trauma. Not far from her dead body were her two sons locked in the room. Catherine Martinez was 24 years old. Neal turned himself in and was charged with first-degree murder. He was given a $100,000 bond, but after a vast amount of evidence came in, his bond was revoked and he was sent to prison to await trial. But as he awaited trial, he started to act crazy and telling everyone that he identified as Jesus Christ. So they placed him in a mental institution. When it was time for him to stand trial, Russell was deemed too incompetent to stand trial despite him admitting to the crime and him being fully aware of his actions. Red flags of Russ and Catherine's relationship should have been shown because in 2008, his younger brother Ronald Neal murdered his wife and was sentenced to 80 years in prison. Let's hope one day Catherine Martinez gets her justice. In 2012, Marcus Sanders, Tristan Irby, and Shannon Gill reformed High Five with two new members. In 2014, they were featured on the TV One show Unsung, and it will be the final appearance of former member Russell Neal before getting booked for his crime. In 2017, they released an album called Legacy on Tristan Irby's label Bronx Most Wanted Entertainment. Today, High Five tours in the memory of their late member Tony Thompson. And that concludes the tragedy of High Five. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.